hosts. Hey, Jamie and Steve, what happened today? How was your Monday?
Well, thank you very much, Scott. It was an interesting Monday. We'll just say that. A lot of activity. Wouldn't you say so, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fun for all.
And we'll talk about some of that fun for all here in just a moment. Want to welcome everybody to the July 13th office hours. I'm your host, Jamie Hodge. Got Steve Gomez in here as well. Hopefully going to show you guys some interesting stuff here. But before we get started, I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of the fact that in this webinar or any of the webinars on a weekly basis is for educational purpose, sell stocks or anything else for that matter. If you do need investment advice, please seek out someone like a Series 7 licensed stockbroker, registered investment advisor, someone that's licensed to dispense that type of information for you. All right, moving right along here. Always like to take a little bit of time at the top of the hour, room up 30 minutes before every open, and $0.00. So if you've shopped around for trading rooms out there on the web, you know that most of them that are worth their salt are certainly not free. But ours is, and if you have not been taking advantage of that resource, by all means, you should do that. Of course, today's Mondays, you get myself and Steve. Steve's going to take the steering wheel for Trade of the Week, and Andy Linloff rides shotgun with him. Like to switch it up a little bit. On Wednesdays, we got Dan Merck. Bar goes away. We should be able to see it. You'll be, oh, just keep in mind, this is for anything TI related, whether it's a simple configuration. As you can see, AI entered 2017, 2018, a little bit of flat period, half of 2020. Guess is that people are digging it, you know. Of course, you know, we've got a little bit of macro stuff going on out there, keeping a lot of people at home, which probably accounts for a little of these new accounts because a lot more people are trading the markets. Without going into further detail, I think everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about there. All right, so but live orders as well. Hopefully within the next, your guess is as good as mine. Steve, I'd say the market caught me a little off guard today. Not at the beginning, but towards the end there. And I guess it's a good time to pass it on over to you and let you do your thing.
The S&P 500 and tail or a bottoming hammer, or what the news was, if there was. Talk about once a candle closes below kind of a NASDAQ is the one that has definitely led us higher because of the technical low. Today's range, I think we need to pay attention to. You know, we had a lot of space, as I say, in between. I know Andy does, and I like to take attention. We got out of a amount of S&P, a big portfolio, and you don't want to earn the quick flow. It's just a great observation. If we go back to the NASDAQ this morning, take a look at the daily markets here at all-time highs and downside bone after what we saw.
Steve, I think a lot of people, including myself, we saw that VIX and we're just kind of like, huh. Just like for the, you know, little sideways action and sideways day activity that we had, compare accounts, confirming everything. So it just looked like another typical grind up day until we got to this action over here. And of course, as Steve pointed, close below, it was just, what is a reentry? It's I did in comparison, okay? And we can see here, if I right click and over here, that is the risk Holly's rule set. Just like you or I would have a stop loss. So have reduced risk, which we didn't see any of those reduced risk exits. Now, if we're talking about moderate risk, then the AI is just going to insert the stop loss. If the stop loss gets triggered, the trade will be frozen. But if it doesn't get stopped out, it will continue to track the trade, assuming the stop out does not occur. And lastly, aggressive profit is just going to show you how the position did. If you didn't use any risk management, if you just put the position on, didn't use any stop losses, profit targets, just let it go to the close. All right, so that's the difference there in a nutshell between the three risk modes. And let's get on with the show here and see how I stacked up against Holly. Now, before we get going with the trades here, I want to point out this. If I go to tools for my TI toolbar, go to options, and I go to my AI trade size, I'm risking $100 per trade. You can see right here, we've got other options. We could assess a certain amount of dollars per trade, buy a certain amount of shares per trade, or risk X amount per trade. In this case, I've got mine set on 100, and I've got the same instructions set up in Brokerage Plus. So when you click on moderate down here and you see the total 502.87, that is based on risking $100 per trade. All right, Steve, I see you knocking out the questions there. Let me know if I need to expand on anything in the questions panel. So let's see how I stacked up today. So notice my tally here, how I finished up, 400 bucks. Now, 502.87 over here for Holly. So technically, I underperformed in moderate mode by 100 bucks. Okay, but the good news is I still came out green. I just made 100 bucks, roughly speaking, less than the AI. So when we start looking at the differences in the trades here, it's pretty interesting because, as I like to say all the time, you could put 10 people in front of the same day today and tell them to make their own exits based on the AI's trades, and you'd probably get 10 different results. You might get some people coming in close, but you'd probably have 10 different number sets there. So let's take a peek here, and I'll kind of show you how my day unfolded today as far as interacting with the AI. So let's talk about capturing a little bit of spread between what we see right here, moderate profit. Let me get my pointer active again here. Still not real proficient with it. So sometimes a spread is left when the data out right here in this MXL short trade. The AI closed out that short in profit save mode and made 50 bucks based on a $100 risk. So when we check it out on the chart here, the shaded area right here is the time spent in the trade. All right, so we get a nice little down move here, and Holly closes it out right there at about, let's see, entry price 26.11, 25.70, right about here. Okay, I'd say, yeah, right about there. I'll just put a line right here. However, if we ignored Holly's exit and stayed in the trade a little bit longer, we would have went sideways for about an hour before finally getting this final release as the whole market was coming down. Of course, you know, we didn't know that that was going to happen at this point in time. But basically, we've had a nice orderly down move, and now we're going sideways for a little bit. So a lot of the times when we see this type of action and we see Holly making the exit, we can say, you know what? Trade's working thus far. I'm going to ignore her profit save exit. I'm going to stay in it, therefore taking a little bit more risk, and we could have made considerably more than 50 bucks to the tune a little bit over 3x on that one. That's assuming we held into the close here. All right, so that's how we can interact with the AI when we see the AI making an exit and we think that the trade might have a little bit more juice left in it. We can ignore it, take a little bit more risk, and hopefully capture some of the spread here between conservative and moderate profit. Okay, so that's what the AI did in MXL. How did I do in MXL today? All right, so I ended up pulling out 92.41. Didn't get the top here, didn't get the bottom, but the goal is to get a little bit of that spread. Okay, sometimes you'll get it all. That's the exception and not the norm. But the goal is to just try and get a little bit more. So the way that I exited, and we can see here right now, when I click here, you're going to notice there are different buy and sell arrows. Click right here. It's going to show us the AI and risk, or the conservative mode. I wanted to say risk off there, but that's what it used to be called. When I click on it, you're going to see my arrows appear. So an initial sell right up here, and then I covered a little bit right here. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to keep the other half, and you know, I forgot what my adjusted my stop, probably back to the top of this level here, but then I covered the second lot down here and left all of this on the table. So you know, a little bit is better than nothing, and I was able to capture a little bit more profit than conservative mode. And of course, you know, somebody out there might have said, you know what, this looks good, I'm not covering any, and I'm going to, you know, cover at the close, in which case they would have made a lot more than me and probably. So a good example of extracting a little bit of that risk on, or conservative versus moderate risk spread there. Let's take a look at another one here. Get my pointer back. All right, let's look at the big winner today. And this was a beautiful trade in many aspects. Number one, we had a nice gap down on, always want to call this one grit, and that is exactly what the name of the company is called. I call it grits, Gritstone Oncology. So a nice early entry signal. Let's see, what was the exact time here? I think it was 5 minutes, 8 minutes into the open. We get a nice short signal that we know has statistical viability because Holly's bringing it to us. And then we get this beautiful 1, 2, 3, about a 45-minute, 30, 45-minute little consolidation period, which sets up nicely for a time to add to this position. Okay, we're already in it right here with statistical probability on our side. We get that sideways action, and then right here would have been a very choice time to add to that position. We got some real tight ranges right here when it breaks that opening range. 1, 2, 3, 4, right about the hour mark. We could have held what we had or pressed that position and added to it right here, and that would have worked quite beautifully here. All right. Now, Holly ends up taking pretty good cover right here. Holds it all the way down to here, covers right here, and nets out about $280 on a $100 risk. Not too shabby. Look at these percentage values at the close, up over 20%. Now, this is one that I didn't time too well. We can see here on GRTS, I finished the day only up 228 when the AI booked 280 and 318 respectively, holding into the close. But for me, let's see, there we go. Okay, at this level right here, we were up 10%. So I was like, 10% winners, they're out there, but they're kind of few and far between. So I felt compelled to cover half right here. Up 10%, fine, I'm taking half. I'm gonna let the other half ride. So that was my mentality this morning. I'm like, I'm taking 10%, covered half, then I'm gonna set my break even stop right here or on this chart. But all right, what do we got next here? Let's take a look at DIN. This was a late day trade. Not used to seeing the power hour long or power hour short. This strategy became active. We had a little after the statistically viable signal mode, making about 30. Jamie didn't do quite so well on this one. Ended up pulling 150, where Holly was 197 in conservative mode. This little wick right here kind of spooked me out. If we click on mine here, you can see the first buy was right there. After we got that little wick, I was like, yeah, that's typically not a good sign. But they pulled the banana in the tailpipe on me, only to have it regress back down, engulf that wick, and head lower into the close. So I was off a little bit today, but still making some pretty good trades with Holly making the entries and me making the exits. So once again, underperformed slightly on DIN as well. Let's check out, we already looked at MXL there. This one, okay, INMD. All right, Holly pulled the plug pretty quickly on this one here. All right, buy signal here. She only stomached it for this little period of time right here. Let me get rid of that. You can see, so Holly getting a little bit antsy on this INMD. Only staying in the trade, let's see here, 835 to 851. For some reason, she got spooked out of this one pretty quickly here. Ends up booking 1663. Of course, if we held this one into the close, would have ended up losing a little bit of change down here, the way it felt. But I mean, it didn't feel like there was any reason to get out of this. I mean, we were just slowly, there's really no reason to get out. Market was cooperating as well. So on this one, Holly making 16 bucks. On this one, I ended up pulling 134.85, so just a little bit more than 1R. We can see right here, I sold half right here and said, you know what, I'm just gonna take half, and I picked it pretty good on that one. So this was the big anomaly here. made decent money on that one where Holly did not. Let's see, what am I missing here? Oh yeah, and lastly here, well, I'll talk about Ash too. This one was briefly in the money, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, we'll give it a little bit of time. Of course, this one comes down nicely, looking like it's going to work, but man, just quickly turned and burned. A little gap of $12.48. Now this guy right here, I was close to greatness on Vuzi this morning. This is one of the first things that I did when I saw Vuzi get stopped out. You know, I pulled it up, immediately saw this wick, saw this next candle right here, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Got stopped out of Vuzi. I'm going to rebuy it right here, which when I click here now, you can see the green arrow right here is where I went back into it because I liked what was going on with this wick right here. A lot of the times when they go down and get stopped out and put in a bottoming wick like this, that's a good sign. So I went ahead and said, you know what? I'm going back in. All right. Didn't have second entries on the auto, but I saw this one, said, you know what? I like it. I like the wick. I'm going to buy it. And before too long, you know, I was up a good amount right here, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to cover up that entire loss in Vuzi on a trade around, get that money back, but it wasn't meant to be. Okay, got about half of it back before we curled back over here, at which point, you know, I set my stop loss right down here and ended up multiplying the losses in the Vuzi by almost twofold there. So, you know, considering the fact that I was somewhat off on my exits, you know, it wasn't that bad of a total, pulling out 400 when the AI was up 502 for an off day. Hey, I'll take this each and every day on a small amount of trades there. So today's a really good example on the way that I use the AI today, that, you know, all you got to do, you know, is interact with the AI, pick your spots on the charts. You might end up having a winner in one that the AI ended up having a loser on. But the bottom line is, when you're working with these AI signals, you got statistical probability on your side right off the bat. Then if you can start identifying additional chart patterns on top of that, you know, well, you know, through repetition and working with the AI on a daily basis, it can help teach you about things as well. And, you know, today was a classic example. Even though I was slightly off, I was still able to come out pretty green on 6 signals today, even though the AI's on a trade-by-trade basis, results were a lot different than mine. Only being $100 away from the total here, you know, is something to, well, I find it very interesting, right? The fact that we could have several different people interacting with these signals and get totals that are pretty close to the AI with different totals on each and every position there. So I hope I didn't confuse everybody too much on that. If there are any questions, by all means, let me know.
Are you able to address Nate's question? I don't understand. His P&L resets to 0 at the end of each day. That might be a bug. I'm not sure in the sim trader.
My P&L and B plus resets to 0 at the end of each day. Any way to view the P&L? So you're talking about right at the close, Nate? Because these should stick around for, you know, for a good while after the close. Now on the next day, they're going to be reset. But you're saying that yours reset 10 minutes after the open? Now, is that on AI trades, or is it manual trades, as well as maybe some auto trades that you had in from some of your own strategies? Interesting. Okay. Well, I tell you what, we'll probably need to take a look at your log files. So if you come over here to help and click on it, you'll have this option down here, send files to support. So if you do that, and you might want to pop an email over to info@trade-ideas.com and say, hey, I sent my log files in, this is what I'm experiencing. And then we can get in there and take a look and see, you know, why your trades are resetting so quickly there. All right, ladies and gents, so that is the Holly interaction lesson for today. Now, I'm going to talk about some other things. Put a new twist on some old windows today, especially after the past couple of weeks, seeing all these smaller cap stocks, smaller dollar stocks going these huge rips. A lot of them are going to be the biotech stocks, but not all of them. So, I've got my tried and true turbo brakes up and down windows. Of course, anybody that's watched those knows there's a lot of signals coming through there. So what I did last week as of Friday, and watched them all again today, is I took my turbo brakes up and down, which are these guys down here, and I retooled them a bit. And so let's take a peek at the changes that were made. Now, in their original manifestations, I've got 1 minute volume at 300%. I've eliminated that, as you can see here. Not requiring any average daily volume, average daily volume 300, 500,000. Just going with a volume today as a share count and saying, hey, don't care what it is, as long as it's traded 100,000 shares a day, then I'd like to see it. And then we're just going the very simple route of relative volume has to be 7 or greater. Therefore, we know the volume is going to be there, and then it's just about looking at the pattern, seeing if it's conducive. So a real simple configuration, but showed me some really interesting setups today that we're going to take a look at. And we're going to be keeping the same pattern intact, a simple opening range break, because, well, it's simple. So we got a simple configuration here. We got a simple chart pattern to focus on. So it's going to be the same pattern, but I think it'll be pretty eye-opening here. So I'm going to showcase some of the ones that this upside version kicked out today. First, we have this guy right here, occasional. Now, a little bit, not too thin here on an average daily volume basis. Let's see here, is a little bit thin of a stock, typically kicking out only 52,000 shares. It's trying to sling 10,000 share pattern that is important here. So right here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About an hour and 15 minutes into, about an hour and 30 minutes into the open, we get this nice little range break right here. Now, look at the relative volume here. So yeah, typically this stock is sleepy, kicking out only 52,000 shares, but it kicked out 319,000 shares today. And as I said earlier, unless you're some crazy big lot person, then getting your shares filled in this stock today should have been probably no issue there with pretty tight spreads as well. But the bottom line is volume in this thing was booming, and boy, what a nice little lift we had from approximately 450 up to, let's see, where do we top out here? This one right here, up to 511. That is a very nice percentage return on a small dollar stock there. So once again, a nice clean range break, and typically what we do is once we see that thing hitting a high, we want to catch it as close to that breakout level as we can, not chase too much. I mean, even if you bought the top of that candle, you were still in pretty good shape today. Now these two prior candles are so tiny, you can barely see them. So I just went ahead and stretched out risk down to the prior range, right? So big reward area, very small risk area. So that was a nice production from this window today on the LINC. This one, not too bad either. Almost looks identical to the one that we just saw. Mitchum Industries kicking out a hearty 700,000 shares today, finishing with relative volume of almost 13. Very similar pattern. This one taking place after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a little over 2 hours into the open. We get this break right here, right about the $1.90 level, I believe. Yep, about $1.88, and topping out at 219, about a 17% gain from the time that that signal went off right there. So once again, these candles being very small, so I just kind of stretched it out, but nice big fat juice. King for today was definitely this one. Look at that one, ladies and gentlemen. This one not occurring until well into the open. 8:30 open, almost 11:30 here, so about 2 hours and 45 minutes in, we get this stock breaking out right here. Now, $9.60, somewhere in that area right there. I mean, look how small your risk is down to this level right here. And this thing just lit up today, all right? Getting all the way up to 27 Okay, so well over a triple there. Some good opportunities here. If you got into this trade, we had options to press the trade here. This is the first leg. We get a nice move up here, another little flattening out area right here. So this one presented us with a really nice opportunity to add to the position if we felt so compelled. And then we got it once again right here and once again right here. I mean, I don't know what sparked the fire under this one today. Didn't look at the news or anything, but man, what a mover, a triple from 9 up to 27 today, and never really threw any big pullbacks in there. I mean, this one was just a nice clean move on many fronts. And look at the relative volume here, 3.68 thousand, right? This thing usually only kicking out 33,000 shares and finished the day kicking out almost 96 million shares. Now, this is also a classic example of what happens when buying comes into a low float stock. Note the float amount right here, 8.61 million, and the thing kicked out almost 96 million. So how many times did the float turn over? I mean, that's a huge, this is probably one of the biggest ones I've seen in a very long time. So a classic example of a small float stock coming to life. And when that volume comes in, you're going to get some accelerated moves there. Let's see, Joshua, reduces mortality in patients with COVID. Hey, no big surprise there. That's what most of these small stocks that have been pushing up over the past 2, 3, 4 weeks. I mean, COVID lit the biotechs on fire, right? And this is just another example of seeing that. So interesting, the fact that I never even looked at the news all day, just focused on the price action, but no big surprise there, Joshua. Thank you for pointing that out. Reduce mortality in COVID. And of course, you know, we're far from out of the woods with the whole COVID thing, so I would expect more of these types of moves to occur. Just keep in mind, these biotech stocks can be good return earners. They can also punish you quite severely. So as long as you're implementing proper risk management, you don't have anything to worry about. So just keep that in mind as you move forward. All right, so let's see here. We do have the other side of the coin to look at. How about some downside moves? All right. Let's see, we had NXTC and SPAQ. Of course, if you've been in the chair the past couple of weeks, SPAQ, you probably saw this one when it was on its massive rip up from about 11 bucks up to over 21.57. But this one set up pretty nice today to the downside. So let me just get rid of those lines. And here we had this one setting up, giving back a little bit. Same pattern, same song, same dance here. We had a nice big wide range bar setting the opening high here, and then we immediately regress down to these levels here. We got to include the wick there. That kind of spoils the party, but if we're playing by the rules, that was the actual low about 45 minutes in. And so we got a little down push here, and slowly but surely we creep down and we poke through that high there. So we could have made an entry somewhere right around the $18 level. And then for the next 45 minutes, we just get some sideways action. Reminds me of some of the Holly plays that we see from time to time. Holly makes the entry, we get sideways action. Quite frankly, this little area right here, most of the time is where Holly would probably make a reduced risk exit and close it out, okay? But finally, patience pays off here, and we get a break below these levels, and we get a nice push down here. So, you know, this being the entry signal right here, look back a couple of bars, risk signal there, nice small risk area, nice juicy reward area right here. So that was a nice simple play produced from the modified version of Turbo Breaks Down. For the downside. And of course, there were a lot more of these. I'm just marking up a couple just to show you guys, you know, what the patterns look like. NXTC was very interesting as well, number one, because this ticker over here, Turbo Down Family No Support, which is looking for things that are at all-time lows, it's been pretty dried up here lately. Not a lot of things hitting all-time lows. Well, NXTC was doing just that. We're looking over here at the daily. Of course, we had a nice big gap down. We gapped down to the abyss, and then we had some sideways action. So this thing was pretty much grinding it out all day, just treading water. And you don't typically see these types of plays come late in the day, but lo and behold, in the last 15 minutes of the market, this thing decided it wanted to break down, more than likely just getting pulled down by the rest of the market. But all in all, still a good trading opportunity, even though it came late in the day, because, you know, this candle right here doesn't really look like a 1.5, but it is, okay? 951 is where that breach occurred, and the bottom of that candle is almost $8. So that's almost another $1.50 that we moved down just in that prior 15 minutes. And, you know, if you put the trade on right as this thing broke, it never even acted like it was going to go up. You know, we could have used the tops of these candles. I just enlarged it a little bit because, I mean, we're just getting to the point where it's kind of ridiculous. Going, well, that was our risk area. But realistically, it was. So another 1.5 move there on a $9.50 stock. That's a pretty good percentage value in that last 15 minutes there, but a pattern is a pattern, and this one worked very nicely here. So I'm going to drop these modified versions of turbo brakes into the chat area, and I would say watch them for more of these type plays here moving forward in the new week. Because whether the market's going up or down, with these two windows, you know the volume is going to be there because of the relative volume requirements. So you don't have to worry about volume. Just look and see if the pattern is conducive. If it is, and the risk is in place, you know what to do there. All right, so I've dropped both the long and the short version in there. So put them on your radar. Keep an eye on them. Take a little time check here. Yeah, and that is the long and short of it. All right, we got about 10 minutes left here. So any questions that I need to backtrack on, Steve, before we bring Scott in? Everybody good?
I'm sorry, I'm just
Okay.
saying if there's any B+ videos that don't seem up to date that I don't have, email info@trade-ideas.com. There may be some newer version videos out there to help. Sorry if I didn't get the right stuff out. That's it.
No problemo. Thank you very much, Steve. All right, Scott. Well, that pretty much wraps up the content for today. So, Scott, if you're ready to walk us out and let everybody know how they can save a little bit of money on an upgrade or a new sub, we're ready for you. Paging Mr. Olson. Okay, well, he might have.
My mute button was sticking. So anyways, we do have an ebook that's very useful for earnings season. Just go ahead to trade-ideas.com/earnings and download that. It's a free one. Got some strategies in there for you to employ. As a podcast, search for Trade Ideas Podcast wherever you listen to your pods and add us as a subscription. There was a recent one that we released. I had a good interview. We've also been releasing some interview series by Sean McLaughlin this year. So go ahead and check out those already published and be ready to catch the next one when it comes out. Got a code for you that's good for 15% off your first month or year of Trade Ideas. Summertime saves you 15% off that first installment. You can also use this to do an upgrade from standard to premium, so keep that in mind. And any questions at all, send them to info@trade-ideas.com. That goes to our help desk and gets you the support you need. You can follow Jamie on Twitter at QuantBot. You can also follow Steve Gomez at Today Trader. We've also got @Trade Ideas. And Trade Ideas Pro is the Facebook handle to like and share with all your friends. We're going to get this recording up later on tonight or tomorrow, so keep an eye out tomorrow for an email from GoToWebinar with a link to where you can find it. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jamie. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. Steve, we'll see you on the flip side, buddy.